Welcome back. We are still having those raw and real conversations, and I have a new group of industry key players sitting with me, and I'm really excited to introduce them to you. We will start with Tilsley. Please let us know, what is your role in the fashion industry?
Hi, so my name is Tilsley. I'm an independent clothing designer celebrating 30 years in the industry this year. I've had many labels through the years, most notably probably for NECA. I started way back when with the YFM store, and the late Wande and Chubby from Lotion Culture. I then moved on to do Soul Child, which is in YDE, still in YDE. And I now do something called Bulbulia Threads, which is really a reflection of me and my culture and my heritage. And it's focusing more on modest wear clothing, which is really a big global trend at the moment.
Hi, I'm Feroz Patel. Company is called Golden Glow Textiles. So we are one of the leading importers of textile fashion fabrics in the country. We're around 30 years in business.
Wow.
We're supplying basically from your home industry right up to your big chain stores. We source, conceptualize, design, trend forecasts, we import fabric, we design the fabric. So we're all in one kind of thing, you know. So yeah, we're looking for fabric, that's where people come.
Great, thank you. Welcome. You are?
I'm Fabrice Moyo, and
Yes.
I'm a creative director, founder of a company called From Ellis. It's also a registered trademark. We do menswear and women's wear. We are involved in from development to manufacturing is done in-house, and we've been doing it since 2003. I'm a third generation fashion designer, and I'm based in Selby.
Amazing, thank you. And
Yes.
please let us know what your role is in the fashion industry.
Good day, everyone. My name is Ditiro Mashiro. I'm a textile and fashion designer based in Pretoria. I run a small fashion brand called Sarati Ltd. What we do essentially is that we are a high craft textile company. What we really focus on is the slow fashion aspect of fashion. So our products are predominantly embroidered, hand printed, and uniquely styled for each individual.
Hi everyone, my name is Tian Green. My company is Tamaris. We are dye sublimation printers. We print for both the fashion industry and the promotional industry. And we supply local designers as well as international designers.
Great. So we've been talking about the past, the present, and the future of the fashion industry, and it's quite clear that you guys have been in the industry for so long. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced in the years of being in the fashion industry, and what are the challenges you're facing now, especially with COVID and the pandemic?
Before we actually started this conversation, we kind of like had a conversation downstairs with Tasmin, and I actually want us to ask Tasmin to carry on one of the things she was saying before we got in here. Tasmin, you were saying that that we have one of the problems that we have also, that you have since you moved from Cape Town, is your inability to find really talented people who can help you in your factory. And yes.
Yeah, I think in terms of manufacturing, Johannesburg's not an ideal place for independent designers.
Got it.
It's very hard to find the quality, the finish that you're looking for. So I used to be based in Cape Town for a long time. I had my own CMT there, and obviously we outsource with many little factories. The nice thing in Cape Town is that you have small little specialists that a small independent designer can go and source high quality anything and get it chain store quality. Because that is the name of, the industry set up there. In Johannesburg, we struggle a lot with that. So I was saying to Fabrice, even with Tia, I was saying I stopped doing printing, I stopped doing dyeing, I don't do anything that requires a wash house because I can't source any of those things locally in Johannesburg. Obviously, I mean, fashion in South Africa is so diverse, even though we're one little country, but every little region you'll see will be very different. So I think what we have done, and that shows our creativity as creatives in Johannesburg, is that we kind of have to just find our own way, maneuver around the challenges we do have, which is pretty much, I think we've all done through COVID. COVID has been brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, ask Rose.
Well, in terms of, on the textiles and the fabric side, I mean, I would travel 4 or 5 times a year to Europe because we obviously, season behind them, so we trend forecast. Naturally, we couldn't travel. So that's been a challenge. We've got to do everything online. It comes with these challenges. I mean, a massive challenge as well would be importing fabric. I mean, the container, the freight costs that's gone crazy. I mean, we would pay like on a 40-foot container, something like $2,000. That's shot up to literally 5 times, like $12,000 a 40-foot container. So it's put the costings out for importing the fabric, as well as now we nationally got to pass it to our clients, and it's not easy to come into the to their cost price point. So that's been a very, very big challenge, and it doesn't seem to be improving. So. But
Firoz, don't you think that that gives you an opportunity now to look inward and say, if the price outside South Africa is getting out of hand, maybe it gives us an opportunity now to look inward and develop our own industry. Have you engaged stakeholders in the trading industry to see how, because I know you because I'm your client.
Yeah.
I visit you almost on a weekly basis.
Sure.
And I'm sure many designers also
yes.
know who Golden Glow is. So I think that with your capacity and knowing that you play a center role in fabric distribution in Johannesburg, don't you think that it's time that you can actually engage the people in the industry to help you or your company to go into local manufacturing? Because the world is getting unstable, and we don't want to find ourselves tomorrow that where Russia invade Ukraine and China invade Taiwan, and then we find ourselves that our supply chain is completely disrupted.
So what we've done is we've reached out to a few of the local mills, like there's JMV Textiles, and there's a few local guys that are doing product, obviously, more in the knitwear side of the industry. Wovens are a bit more of a challenge, and that's something which I think needs to be addressed. But on the knitwear side, we've engaged with them and says, hang on, you know what, we are distributor to the industry. Let's work closer together. Let's see how we can assist each other, to get product to, obviously, all our clients. So that's something that we have been trying to do, where we, naturally we would just import the fabric, it would come quickly. Now we've got to work locally with, obviously, before it would have been my competitors. Now we work with our competitors together, work together. I would source fabric from them, they would source from me, just so that we could get things, the ball rolling again, spruce things up a bit, I
also think it's actually, as much as it's been full of challenges, it has had a lot of opportunities. And it's also given Firoz, I'm sure, a lot of the ability to sell off old stock. Things that have been sitting, because we were so limited with what we could have.
Yeah.
And I think that, even with you in terms of upcycling and recycling and reusing, which is so important in our industry that has so much waste.
Yes.
And we really need to address that. But I think that is an opportunity, because, literally in the last 2 years, we were just trying to find whatever is available and using it and being more creative. Yes, and being more creative with what you have.
When I think Cyril says everybody needs to wear a cloth mask, it was the happiest day for me. I tell you, the next day the phone didn't stop ringing.
I like printing.
I'm sure it's same for you, right?
Yes.
I hate face masks.
But we have to do it, It's something we have to do.
Masks,
we did.
But I hate them. I'd rather be printing.
But
we're finding with the volatility in the price and the deliveries from China, we're getting a lot more people asking us to print locally for them, which is great for us.
But that's the thing. If we are saying, let us support local, let us buy local, what are we doing for people to actually support that local?
I think one of the biggest problems is pricing, because Firoz's fabrics comes in, it's printed, they print 10, 20,000 meters at a time, easily. Where in South Africa you're looking at much smaller quantities, so your price levels go up. So that becomes a problem when you're trying to get into the market.
We actually had this discussion earlier when we were having a coffee.
The economy of scale.
And we talked about the duty structures, right? And this is something I'm very passionate about anyway, is that as a fabric wholesaler, we're supplying the smaller, the Slims and the Fabricios and, all the smaller home industries, right up to like medium to the, we are providing employment and to the factories, the CMPs. So at the end of the day, if we are paying high duties on the fabric, which is now obviously at a higher level, their price points are going to be higher. Whereas, we need the government to actually, in the industry, to look at new duty structures to help us, where we can pass the benefit on to all our clients, thereby obviously increasing production, all that kind of thing.
And it's actually surprising, Firoz, that you complain about duty, whereas the fabric that you bring in, we are guaranteed that it's not going to be used raw. It's going to be manufactured. So along the line, it's going to create employment. 100%. But you're surprised that, in downtown Johannesburg, someone who pays no duty with counterfeit gets it in already made, and and we can't compete with that. You know, but you see, also one thing I've also noticed in the industry, even prior to COVID, is that what does Min say that moving from Cape Town, she found it challenging meeting, having to find people and find manufacturers and people with whom she can collaborate. I want to say that it's actually a problem. Is actually a problem where, first of all, in Gauteng we don't have a functioning council, fashion council, where you can go in as a center of information and know who you can get what with who. That doesn't exist because the people that run the council at the national level do not have a constituency. In a normal political setting, in a normal structure setting, if you come, you can have a council from Johannesburg, from Gauteng, from Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, that form a national council. At the moment, people who represent are part of the National Fashion Council come from Gauteng, but there's no functioning council in Gauteng. Then you ask yourself, what are these people's role? Are they there just to be friends with politicians and pretend to be part of the industry, or they're really there to build industry?
I think the biggest challenge, and I speak from experience because way back in, I don't want to give my age away, but in 2005, I was a founding member of the Cape Town Fashion Council, which was one of the better run ones. And I sat on the ESCO for maybe 3 years. But for us, the biggest challenge was, you know, you need to have actual people who work in the industry be representative on the council, not people who don't come from the industry and don't experience the challenges we experience. Even then, I mean, it was nice because you had people from chain store, from manufacturing, from independent designers.
With the knowledge as
well.
Yes,
and also if you are a working designer, I think a big challenge when you talk about challenges is, you know, in other countries, if you look at global international brands, right? You look at your Louis Vuittons, you look at your Gucci's, whatever, who owns them? These are big multinational, huge companies with lots of money to market, and they are run as businesses. In South Africa, we're seen as a little creative, small industry on the side, which we are not. The amount of money clothing and fashion generates globally is on another scale. In South Africa, we're constantly looking at people at unemployment. We can employ so many people, we can train so many people, there's so much stuff to do.
The value chain,
everything,
from, you know, is labor intensive. It's massive.
And it's a highly skilled. Exactly what I was saying to Fabrice. I don't find highly skilled people in Johannesburg because it was in the 80s we manufactured, in the 90s we stopped. That's why I moved to Cape Town, etc. And we don't really have that anymore. In terms of innovation and technology, when you're talking about sourcing fabrics locally, very hard to, because those mills have all closed down. There's no technology, there's no investment in it. And we would really love to go back to that because we come from such a creative country. Look at South Africa. Look at the international brands. They're constantly stealing from African designers, from all the things that we know how to do. So if we were given the opportunity, we would love to be having this conversation with the people who make decisions, real decision makers, not just paying their little lip service, but actually taking us seriously. I have not been an independent designer for 30 years, supporting myself, my family, my kids, but I'm never taken seriously because it's looked at, oh, well, you know, you just make pretty dresses. That's not what we do.
Got it. So I just want to hear from Ditiro. What are the challenges that you have faced, and how do you build a sustainable business out of fashion?
So it's very interesting because what happens with our generation being people who've graduated post 2010, most of us do not want to add to the textile waste or the fashion waste. We rather look at building solutions for sustainable design and manufacturing in ways that are less wasteful, less harmful to the environment. That's a global message. But what I've also then realized through having a conversation today is that we don't actually have a value statement for South African design industry that informs why young South Africans should be designing a specific way. So it's very hard for a young designer to be motivated to design for an industry where the industry leaders are not communicating what the challenges are. Personally, I found that some of the challenges I was faced with when I started out my design career, I then took it upon myself to then, say, first of all, I need a unique textile brand or textile print for my particular brand. I went out and I studied design, and that's a 3-year course, something that I could have possibly gone to Tasmin and trained for a year and had that skill. And I think that interplay between the older generation and the younger generation, that's also something that's really caused a bigger divide between or within the industry amongst us, and why trust and our ethics are always going to be questioned because we don't nurture the relationships amongst ourselves. Now, how much so will it be harder to communicate a message to the consumer or to government?
I think that is why we're having these real and raw conversations, you know, to just bridge that gap and also to inform people. I mean, would you say, Tian, that social media, the technology world, has played a huge role in the past of fashion and the future of fashion? Because when you think about it now, on Instagram, you get so many fashion boutiques, you know, it's a quick fix,
So like,
you know what I mean?
Just stop you on that point. Like, I mean, for our business, it's been brilliant because it's opened up a whole new clientele base for us. And it's an opportunity for, you know, a little mum at home who's got a little thing that, you know, I want to do some little kids wear or a range of little party dresses or whatever it is. And, you know, it's opened up, and she's got so many opportunities for them, you know. So that's been brilliant for our business anyway, and I'm sure for you guys as well, naturally.
Well, everybody's got their own style and their own flavor. And Instagram and social media just open those doors up massively. So you've got, we had 10 or 20 people showing off their fashion, you now have got 100,000 people. Some of them not so good, but they're still showing it off.
But with that also comes the downside. So what we find a lot is when you post your image, it's very easy to be knocked off very quickly because it's already there. But the other thing is, because I have a commercial brand within YDE, I was just saying to them earlier, you see the buying trends, right? So on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, people are buying stuff because they're going out on the weekend. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's all being returned. So they took their selfie and it's done, and now we're going to return the garment, get our money back, and buy a new outfit for next weekend. So it's, you know, it goes both ways.
Also on the positive side, like if you look at just fashion in general, and something I've noticed, if you looked at, since obviously the lockdowns and COVID and stuff, everybody would just sit at home in the little loungewear and the tracksuits and stuff. And like on our side now, everyone wants to be glamorous. Everyone wants to look. Everyone wants to get out. I've been doing some trend forecasting.
I also want to touch on one of the things that Tiro say as a young designer, which is also linked to what Tasmin says at the beginning. Because Tiro says that she had to go and study for 3 years. Instead, if she had a chance, she would have preferred to come to someone who's already in the industry to train her. It would have been easier. She should have gained more experience, and her barrier would have been less barrier to entry, which also speaks to why you cannot find good assistants. Because if we who have gray hair in the industry are not opening our doors to people to come in, sweeten the deal, like what you say, make it more attractive for a young designer to come in, like she said, because initially you took an example when we were outside about how in other countries they've made it very funky for a guy to sit on the machine. So I think this is some of the things that we need to address, because if you look at our industry now, locally, the average age of a machine is about 47 years old. It's unsustainable. So that means you're not going to find. But another thing that is critical is that we designers, sometimes we also don't look inward. What are also our problem? What is it that we don't do to ourselves? It's like, doesn't mean you work just on top of Golden Glow. I go there every day, but I didn't know you are there. You know, I didn't know him. You know, so it's like we're not communicating. We are not. And this thing, I blame it on the Fashion Council, because if the Fashion Council was solid within Gauteng, you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, can you help me with? I need a machinist that works for menswear," and then they will say to you, "Oh, I need a designer who's good with menswear," and they will say to you, "Okay, call Frank Ellis," and they'll give you my number, and they say, "Okay." You see, now this is something that.
So just stopping you on that point, there is a group on Facebook which I belong to, and I'll probably gladly show it to you when we're done here. It's like a CMT group where there's fabric wholesalers,
But I think what Frank is going to is that we don't have, we used to have a magazine called Pursuit, was the industry magazine.
Pursuit used to be there, correct.
We no longer have that, but we need a real living Pursuit.
So like now everybody's on social media. Well, Facebook, Instagram, and there is something there, but I think what we need to is, as you say, take it to another level where we can engage easier, clearer with each other.
And this
it's more about
goes back to the challenge we have of plagiarism, where designers do not feel comfortable to share where they are, what they're doing, and why they're doing what they're doing, because our ethics, our values, as the design industry, have not been well defined.
The council becomes that glue that advise and speak on our behalf to the authority. Because when during our conversation downstairs, I noticed that everything went back to say, people in government, trade and industry don't understand what we are doing. But we don't have a voice.
Level, of course.
Yes, we don't have a voice because we go individually, and what thing we're doing, we allowing people, we don't want to shake the establishment. We know that the council, Fashion Council, all of us who work in Johannesburg, we know is not existing. We know they're not doing their work, but we don't have the guts to say to them, you know what, who are you representing at the national level? Which voice are you?
I think, Frank, it even goes further than that, because if you look at our fashion weeks, which are also two separate stables, and if you were the one, you can't be with the other. And I think it's really holding us to ransom. And yet, without us, there is no fashion week. Without us, there is no anything. But we are always kind of, oh no, don't tramp on anybody's toes, because they. And I'm talking from experience, because I've had that happen to me for many, many years. And I think what I chose to do personally was put my head down and keep working, because you're tired of fighting that same struggle over and over and over and over. Whether it comes to DTI, whether it comes to councils, whether it comes to anything, you're constantly being told no, or people are finding opportunities for their own so-and-so and so-and-so, that you get to a point where you're like, you know what, even now, I've showcased internationally, I took money out of my own pocket, I got it sponsored privately, because I don't want to go to the government route, because it's such a long, laborious thing, and because they just don't get me and what I do.
You must try Gauteng tourism, because I must give them credit, because, you know, they funded me when I was showing at Milan Fashion Week, and they gave me a call 2 weeks ago to say, we will support you. And to be honest with you, it was a very easy process. I don't think we must put government in a structure we can't paint in one brush, you know. With Gauteng tourism, it was a matter of me giving them a call and telling them what was my need, and they were very helpful, you know. So that's one of the institutions that we need to give them credit and say, you know what, yes.
We're all phoning them after this.
So you need to know, Gauteng tourism, they were there for me, and it happened within a very short time. With GTI, it can be a nightmare. With trade and industry, you know, I've never tried, but I understand what you're saying. So when we talk about government, we must point that a finger at those institutions that fail us. We can't paint all of them with the same brush.
Beautiful.
You know? Yes.
So just to wrap up the conversation, I'm just going to pose one. I know we could go on and on, because the fashion industry is so broad. We haven't even touched the tip, but that's the thing about these raw and real conversations. We have more people coming on, and hopefully they touch some of the So just to wrap it up, I'm just going to pose one question to all of you. Just keep it short and sweet for us. What do you think is the future of fashion?
Wow. I think innovation. Innovation, I think we need to look at doing things more sustainably and reusing and upcycling. And I think when you're creative, you know, it's never ending. There's always something.
Great.
I think on our side, we just need to make sure that we're on top of the game. We need to source and develop more. And I think, you know, as we had this discussion with everyone in the industry collaborating, it will help people like me innovate and obviously develop new product for you know, the industry. So it's you know, it's just working together more than anything.
Perfect.
I think I'm going to agree with my two friends. I think it's about innovation, collaboration, and collaboration. So this is, and we have to think of African solution for African problem, South African solution for African problem. Whatever we adopt as the global norm of sustainability, it needs to speak to our local problem in our local resources. And then we are going to project ourselves to the world and give them what we have. And instead of us wanting to innovate, to compete only with what they're imposing on us. You know, so and the future looks bright. And I think once we start having this conversation and something come out of it, I think we're going to be able to sweeten the deal. Exactly. Sweeten the deal for the young people and make them have few generation come. And so that, yeah, the future is promising.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I think I just want to agree very much with the idea of an African renaissance where Africans take on technology, we take on craft, we take on a bigger stake in the world, in like the world stake in the fashion industry. We can't keep allowing ourselves to be influenced by the world. There has to come a time where we are designing our own, designing our own machinery, creating our own solutions. And I think I'm very much on board with that. I see myself in that world as a young designer.
I think the future of the South African fashion industry relies a lot on the bigger role players, the retail role players, opening up their doors to the young designers and saying, come on board, we're not going to give you a 500-page document with rules and regulations on how to get into our stores. Because that blocks, you get that piece of paper and you look at it, you throw it in the dustbin and go, okay, that's not going to happen, let's move on. So they need to relax their terms and conditions and welcome the local fashion designers in. I deal with a lot of local designers, youngsters, and you don't get designs like that anywhere else.
At that point,
we've got a South African flavor that nobody can replicate.
100%.
I think if
H&M collaborates all the time with international designers. Why can't a Truworths or Foschini collaborate with a Tilsley? Why not?
I know we said we're done, but I think the key point, and I was speaking to Alina before I came up here, we were saying that the biggest challenge is access to retail. It's been the same challenge for 30 years. It's still the same challenge now. And I would...
It will solve a huge issue.
It will, if we had emporiums everywhere with rentals that were affordable for designers who are able to be in those stores, it would just, the future is very bright. But if we don't have access to those prime retail spaces, we are still being excluded constantly.
So the key thing here is collaboration over competition, and tapping into our resources, sticking to our African creativities, and opening the doors for each other.
I think South African designers, fashion and graphic designers, also need to realize that we don't live in a bubble. We've got an entire continent above us and an entire globe that are our market.
Start next door. Okay, start selling next door.
Yes.
Before going to
look for some clients in Botswana. Look for clients in Belgium. Look for clients in America.
Already in at Frankelis, 30% of our income come through export. Is Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, and So we there. The road is open, and I often tell all my friends and colleagues to say, it's just a matter of you picking up a call and calling an airline in Zambia or a hotel in
Talk about COVID. Another thing COVID has allowed us to do is look at our borders, as you say, so it's something that we need to do. You got to just be proactive.
Africa's open for business.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. I'm enjoying this conversation. I'd love to carry on, but we've reached the end of this discussion. This has been a really, really important and exciting conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in.